Welcome to the Six Fouls podcast. M. Dot alongside AB, and we're going to talk about coaching vacancies in Tom Thibodeau and the Bulls finally letting him go. Obviously, that's something everyone knew was going to happen. It was really just a matter of when, and it seemed like the two were kind of playing a little bit of a tug of war. Let's hang on to Thibodeau until the jobs all close up, and Thibodeau saying, well, I'm going to wait until they fire me, I'll sit out, whatever, so on and so forth. But they finally do it, and it just comes down to the fact that the Bulls are a joke.
Well, as we've talked over the years, me and you have been huge Thibodeau guys.
How could you not be?
The record speaks for itself. I don't have the exact record.
Yeah, but the winning percentage was like over 630 over a 5-year span.
Right. And I mean, since Phil, let's be honest,
best coach in that organization since Phil.
Developing guys from good players to great players. Developing a guy like Rose early in his career, and then actually battling through and making those teams successful in spite of Rose's crippling injuries.
And that's the thing that amazes me, because one of the things that John Paxson said was, if we were playing for a championship, we wouldn't be sitting here right now. What was this guy supposed to do when the franchise player has missed more than half the games, but he missed an entire season? And every time the guy came back, he would just end up getting hurt again. And this time, for the first time in about 2-3 years, he's actually been relatively healthy, at least healthy enough to be able to play in the playoffs and produce. Not like the Rose of old. So, granted, this may have been the best Bulls team in this era in terms of, top to bottom talent. It's still, you're asking a lot of what Thibodeau's had to do the last couple of years without a Rose, scrapping guys like Nate Robinson to fight and win Game 7s for him on the road.
Right.
I just don't understand what they really expected from this guy.
And I don't think he could have done much more. I know we read a lot of reports about it just coming down to philosophy. Tibbs running his teams in the ground as far as, kind of conserve them to a point where they didn't have all those injuries. And then they go in the playoffs actually pretty healthy for the first time, and then they get all the injuries.
And then Powell gets hurt against Cleveland.
And that probably became the final stake in his heart, because they then kind of validated the management's whole philosophy the whole time and kind of gave him a reason to be like, yeah, guess what? We are right and you're wrong. And
I guess to kind of play both sides a little bit.
Right.
I think you can kill him a little bit, just a little bit,
you have to,
for the Derrick Rose injury. And the only reason why I say this is because that was a game against Philly in the first round of the playoffs. They were up by 12 with under 2 minutes to go. He really didn't need to be in the game. The game was pretty much locked up. You would, at least to say, it was a 1-8 matchup too, a 1-8 seed.
Right.
So the Bulls had it in the bag. He didn't really need to be in the game, and that's when he suffered, the first major injury.
Massive.
And Joakim Noah does kind of look like he's a little bit running to the ground himself. I mean, This isn't the same player as it was even 2 years ago when he battled basically on 1 foot to knock off Brook Lopez and the Nets.
Right.
In Brooklyn. Taj Gibson was a little banged up too this year. He was at certainly less than 100%, and I think we saw it in the playoffs. So they may be accurate to some degree with stuff like that.
And Luol Deng, too. You can make a case for that, too.
Yeah.
Luol Deng nowhere near the player he was.
No, you're 100%
almost
that.
Decelerated so quick.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, even though he's not in Chicago. That could slip your mind and slip my mind, But, yeah, he got a contract in Miami and did nothing. And, yeah, you can't kill him for that. But at the same time, the thing that I keep going back to, they were down 3-1 against Brooklyn. Right. They come back and win the series against Brooklyn with half the team basically in the hospital. And Nate Robinson and company putting up, I think it was Game 6, with that triple OT game where he was just insane.
Yeah, I remember.
And he's doing it, like I said, Noah was basically on one leg. Rose was out. Nate Robinson and Heinrich and some of they had next to nothing.
Unreal. And then, but like I made the point earlier too, I think the most impressive thing is the development of the guys. They became kind of the core Bulls over the years. The Dangs. Mm-hmm. Dang started with him kind of early in his career, then Noah, then Butler, the most recent example of a guy who was strictly a defensive player and now turned into an all-star player. You can make the argument. I mean, this guy developed kind of that culture for Chicago, and as much as people can rip him for running teams in the ground, I mean, me and you are these '90s type guys. I love the passion. I love the teams that bust their ass, and the Bulls reflected that city. They were Chicago. Chicago's this tough, gritty city. We're going to play to the end until the wheels fall off. And hey, you can rip them, but hey, those teams played hard, you know?
And listen, this isn't the first time the Bulls have ran out of coach. A guy named Phil Jackson won 6 rings.
Right.
And if you read some of the quotes online, Krause was basically saying, I don't care if he goes 82-0 and wins a title, he's gone.
Right.
And, it's, granted, maybe a little bit of different culture. You got Paxson in there and Gar Forman. But it's almost as if they're still bringing somewhat of a similar philosophy. And Paxson's upset that they hired Thibodeau.
I don't get it.
That Reinsdorf hired Thibodeau. Meanwhile, he's talking about the guy that he wanted was Lawrence Frank. And who cares about him? And I don't even remember the second option. Who the heck was the second option? Mike Brown and Lawrence Frank.
Oh, he's still on some island, still cashing checks from the Cavs and Lakers.
Come on, are you kidding me? But I'm pretty sure that they made the right decision when they brought in Thibodeau. But even that press release, which I didn't like, their press release was like throwing Thibs under the bus.
Horrible.
Now Thibs is a free agent. Basically, he's on the market. I guess the Bulls are going to go out to Fred Hoiberg, and I hope he fails. Nothing against him. Seriously, nothing against him. But just for this organization,
great shooter when he was a player, by the way.
Yeah, that's not going to help him on the court this time. But just this organization, it just kind of honestly gets me upset because when you're
when you destroy the Bulls, basically dynasty, that's
when you look at it from a fan perspective, like I'm a Knicks fan. I would kill for a guy like Tom Thibodeau. You know what I mean?
Kill
for a guy like him. I'm sure there's, at least 20 teams in the league. I don't want to go too high just because some teams have their coaches who are doing well. But there's probably at least 20 teams in the league that would love for a guy like Tom Thibodeau to be on their bench. Right. And one of them might be the New Orleans Pelicans.
Right. And we could talk about a little bit about the Pels, the candidates thus far, hearing Jeff Van Gundy.
Yeah.
Hearing Alvin Gentry, who's coasting his way to the finals on the coattails of Steve Kerr, who's coasting on the coattails of Mark Jackson. No, I'm just playing around. I like Kerr. I like Kerr. Kerr's done a good job. But go ahead, talk. What do you think about the Pels? Originally, they wanted Thibodeau as their guy, but they didn't know the Bulls were going to let him out of prison, basically. And now they have. Kind of switches up their frame of mind because they were bringing in Van Gundy, they were talking to Gentry, and now you add the guy kind of in the mix that you wanted.
To me, Thibs is a no-brainer. I mean,
just depends if he wants to go, but that's really it.
Yeah, whether or not he wants to sit out a year. Because why wouldn't you go to a team that has Anthony Davis locked in?
Right. If it's bringing Jeff Van Gundy out of retirement.
Van Gundy knows. The guy hasn't coached in how long?
Right. And he's
got this cake job at ESPN. And, he's great at it. I'm not saying, but he's got a great job.
Right.
He's probably just chilling, going on the road, hanging out with his buddies, Breen and Mark Jackson now, who he's back with.
But they're like, hey, you want to coach Anthony Davis?
And, he sees an opening. He's like, oh, yeah, this is the opening I've been waiting for the last 10 years.
Right. Who isn't? Right.
Yeah.
Who isn't ready to take on the next great young talent in the NBA to come along in a while? So that's a no-brainer. But what do you think? Who do you think would be the best fit? I mean, both defensive-minded guys. I mean, we know we love where he talked about Tibbs, but what do you think Jeff could bring to that team?
It's kind of hard to say just for the simple fact that he's been out of the game for so long.
Right.
Because it would almost be like John Gruden coming down. John Gruden was a really good coach, obviously, in the NFL. But, here's a guy sitting out for basically 10 years. Yeah, he's still involved. He's still in it. Jeff Van was really good in New York. He was good in Houston, even though they had troubles getting out of the first round with T-Mac and Yao Ming. Similar. I mean, Thibs was an assistant with Van Gundy, so they probably both bring a similar philosophy.
Similar style.
Grind it out defensively. Maybe Van Gundy's offensive mindset may be a little bit better, his offensive flow. But again, like I said, that's 10 years ago.
Right.
He's been watching all the 3-and-D action, but is he going to coach the 3-and-D action? I'm not saying he wouldn't. I mean, I'm sure he seems like a smart enough guy to see how the game is going and to try to formulate his offense to some degree.
Right. Most of his teams had the traditional big. When they had Yao, he had Ewing, obviously. So he came totally. He always had teams that from that '90s mold, right? So now it's like, how do you take on a team when you got Anthony Davis? Obviously, that solves a lot of problems.
Yeah. But here's the other thing, like you just mentioned, the traditional big. Maybe he was also able to kind of adjust his style though, because that Knicks team that went to the finals in '99 didn't have it because of injury.
Yeah, it can't be.
Didn't have that. He had the big that's kind of used in today's game.
Right.
Canby, who had a nice career, will probably be much better suited in playing in today's game than he did 15 years ago.
Camby's helpful.
So he had Camby, he had Kurt Thomas. He's obviously no stretch four, but he was a baseline shooter and everything else. But he had a team that was basically run by the guards, by Latrell Sprewell and Allen Houston.
Right.
They weren't taking 800 threes and making them, obviously.
That's a good point.
But, he kind of, he had to adjust because he didn't have his key guy in the middle, and clearly he did well enough by going to the NBA Finals. Then you have the other guy, Alvin Gentry, who...
Yeah, I know. Me and you kind of ran our heads back and forth of why Alvin Gentry continually gets these opportunities. And listen, we don't know behind the scenes. Yeah. Behind the scenes, I'm sure he's a great guy because Kerr obviously trusted him because they had done some things in Phoenix.
Yeah, Kerr was a GM out in Phoenix,
so he's obviously rewarded the guy for being a loyal guy.
But I mean, you would think that Kerr would know that Gentry took over D'Antoni's guys, right? Gentry had D'Antoni's philosophy and his guys and his offense, and went to the conference finals with the same guys. You know what I mean? And now he's with Kerr, and
and all of a sudden he's the wonder guy again. I don't get it.
Again. Obviously, he did a good job in Phoenix. Certainly good enough to make a conference finals run, but just
kind of pulling up the coaching record. I think his first full time kind of action was with the Clippers in 2000, 2001, 31-51, missed the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, but first, look at Detroit. He comes in as an interim guy, 97, 98, and he goes 16-21. Then in the lockout year, he goes 29-21 in 50-game season, and then he 28-30, and he's out the next season. Then he goes to the Clippers and does nothing.
Misses the playoffs twice, then gets fired, then goes to the Suns in the interim.
Yeah, and then he had that 154-win year, and then look what happened immediately after. So I don't really understand.
What's the allure?
Yeah, what is it?
We don't have the answers. That's why we're asking.
Like we're talking about Gentry's. All right, if say you got up on the board, you got
Tibbs, you got
three headshots. One of them is Tibbs. The other is Van Gundy, Jeff Van, and the other is Gentry. And if you had to evaluate, say you're predicting a mock draft, what round these guys would go in a fantasy coaching league, Tibbs would be a first-round pick, right?
Right.
Van Gundy might be like a high upside 2 or 3, right? And Gentry's like a 10th-round pick. I mean, where's the value? I don't really, he's a 10th-round pick, but the Pelicans are looking to make him a first-round guy. Like, you know what I mean?
Right. Well, there's another candidate that's also in the mix, Vinny Del Negro. I mean, what's your thoughts on Vinny? I know that he's kind of gotten a raw deal a few times, but his teams compete. Obviously, we already know that those other guys, like the first-round pick guys, is Del Negro more of a higher, fifth-round pick? Where does he place in your mock draft?
Here's the thing with Del Negro. He got killed so much when he was in L.A. with the Clippers with CP3 and everyone else.
But we know that might not be his fault.
He got killed so much because he just wasn't bringing the offensive play calling and everything else. I don't know how much of that is true, but everybody blamed Del Negro for the Clippers not doing anything, and then he's gone, and they bring in quote unquote one of the best coaches in the league in Doc Rivers, and they've done absolutely they haven't done any better at all. Right. And Del Negro. So it kind of makes it a tough read just for the simple fact that he was trashed so much by media and, just opinionated minds when he was in L.A. with the Clippers that it's almost bringing down your vision or your view of what he is as a candidate now.
And he's like we said, he's been in the Clippers. He was in Chicago. He's had high-profile jobs.
Yes.
I guess you want a guy who's been able to handle the pressure. And if you're looking at it from that point of view, definitely more attractive than a guy like Gentry. Gentry, obviously, an offensive mind. But I think with the Pelicans, you're looking for a guy who can instill a little bit of discipline, though, more than anything. Because, to me, they have the offensive talent. They have Anthony Davis. But guys like Tyreek Evans or an Eric Gordon, you need more of a defensive intensity from them. And for them, I don't think offense is really an issue. So hiring a guy like Gentry, who is an offensive mind, really doesn't make sense to me at all. Del Negro, I can't speak too much on what he brings to the table, other than obviously his big city experience.
500 record both years in Chicago, 41-41.
Right.
Clippers 32-50. Then they get Chris Paul 40-26, 56-26, and he gets fired after 56 wins.
That's unreal. 56 wins.
He's there for 3 years. Years 2 and 3, he's got a win percentage of over 600, and he's out the door.
Crazy. Career record 210 and 184. Not bad.
Not bad.
Not bad.
Only one losing season.
But I guess he's kind of like the bridesmaid in this race.
Yeah, no, he definitely is. I mean, to me, the two best candidates in my mind are Thibodeau, and even though he's been out for a while, Jeff Van.
Well, let's put it this way. How about, let's say, worst case scenario, Van Gundy stays in the booth, and you have Tip saying, I'm taking the year off. Now you got Gentry or Del Negro. What's your call then?
Who was the assistant on the staff last year? Let's bring him on for one season, and then
we bring a Monty back.
No.
Bring a Monty back. Say sorry, we fired you.
They're going to go Gentry.
Sorry, we fired you and did the post games on your front porch when they fired him. That's horrible. But no, go ahead.
No, I mean, in that case, the easy candidate would be for them. I'm saying it's going to be Gentry, no brainer.
Really? So you're taking Gentry hands
Am I taking? I don't want either one of them. I don't really want either one of those two guys, but I think for them, Gentry might be their top candidate right now, let alone...
That's true. He's coming in for a second interview.
Yeah.
A second interview. You know what that means.
Yeah. We'll see how all of that shakes out.
All right, let's talk quick about the Magic, though, on Scott Skiles.
And they bring in Scott Skiles.
Kind of getting the job, getting the nod, coming full circle, because he used to drop...
Yeah, he was there as a player.
Yep, he used to drop crazy dimes. I remember when he played with Shaq. I think he had one game, he had like 30-something assists when he was on the Magic NBA record. I know another guy who kind of wears out his welcome because he's such an intense defensive guy.
He grinds you to death.
He grinds you to death, you know.
I think, though, in this particular circumstance, it might be good because I think this young Orlando Magic team might need a guy like that.
Okay.
Might need a disciplinarian to put him in place, to give them hell when they do something wrong, just so that they learn how to do it right the next time. Because that's what Scott Skiles, you might want to punch him in the face after 30 games, but he's a guy that's going to make sure that you do it the right way, basically, and he's going to be in your face until you do it. I don't think he's good for a team that's got a veteran or two.
Right.
Like if he
trying to take that next step.
Yeah, like he's to me, he's better suited with a younger team. A group of guys like this, and now he actually has one of his former guys in Milwaukee, and Tobias Harris. And so I read something today where they say the relationship is fine between him and Tobias Harris, just that when he was with him in Milwaukee, Tobias was 19. Mm-hmm. He got a lot of, very inconsistent playing time, but he was still learning.
I heard also Brandon Jennings kind of giving a vote of confidence in the hire.
Okay.
Which is surprising, too, because you have these guys like Harris and Jennings who you think are like, enigmas in the locker room. They kind of like, maybe they appreciate a guy like Skiles now, later on in their career. And
as they mature.
Right.
This might be, like, I don't want to go nuts and say, this is the turnaround, they're going to win 55 games. But this is the kind of personality I think they need.
It could be good, and it's a full circle story, given that he's started in that organization as a player. 443 and 433 career record, 18 and 24 in the playoffs. Only one 50-win season, but he did take the Bulls from 23 wins in 03-04 to 47, and 3 consecutive playoff appearances. He's
got some success.
Right.
Now, if you had to handicap next season, Orlando Magic wins.
Wow, that's tough.
Because this could be what you just read could happen with Orlando this year.
And they got a pick. And they got a nice,
they got the fifth pick in the draft.
I don't know.
They got the fifth pick in the draft. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're gonna get a nice.
You're gonna get a nice player.
A nice player. I mean, we have a whole other podcast dedicated to that.
They're gonna get a very good.
But ideally, Elfrid Payton, Vucevic, Oladipo, Aaron Gordon.
Right now,
Tobias, if he comes back. It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's an interesting little team.
And I think in this conference, which obviously isn't the strongest.
Still weak.
Right? I'm not saying that I don't think they're going to win 50 games.
Right.
They could win 43, 42, 43.
They get a defensive big. Now they kind of could be talking because you got the point guard. We and you big fans of Elfrid Payton.
Yeah, love Payton.
If Tobias ever stays healthy.
Love Oladipo, too.
Oladipo, big-time two-way player. With them, the sky's the limit, man. If they can get to me, I think they need a front court player. And they have guys who can actually play defense already. So if you have a guy like Skiles to kind of teach them how to play it the right way, could be big.
They're going to be one of the more interesting teams for me to watch come next season. But that'll do it for this edition of the Six Fouls Podcast. For AB, I'm M. Dot. Catch you next time.